The oldest history of humanity was not written in letters. It was carved into stone. Around 2.5 million years ago, Homo habilis, one of our earliest ancestors, began shaping tools from stone. They didn't write, but what they left on the earth, millions of stone fragments, are the most vivid data we have about the birth of the human mind. Stone tools are not just evidence of survival behavior, they are windows into the prehistoric brain. At sites like the Homo Valley, Ethiopia, Gona, Afar, and Olduvai Gorge, Tanzania, archaeologists have uncovered thousands of shaped stone fragments. These tools mostly belong to the Olduvai culture, the earliest known stone technology created by humans. Each flaked stone contains at least 3 elements worth analyzing. 1. The chosen stone material. 2. The strike direction. 3. The precision in producing a sharp edge. In the beginning, the tool-making process was simple, but over time, the number of strikes and the degree of force control clearly show progress, from instinctive behavior to structured decision-making. Remarkably, many stones show signs of behavior that was not purely practical. Some exhibit symmetrical flaking, repeated polishing, even signs of care and preservation. This means that at times, people chipped stone not just to cut, but to shape, not just to use, but to remember. At certain sites, clusters of broken flakes are found from repeated striking, wasting time and material if the sole goal were survival. But from a cognitive perspective, this could be the first sign of symbolic thinking, humans experimenting with the creation of something beyond utility. From a neuroscience standpoint, chipping a stone effectively requires a sequence of actions: vision, movement, memory, feedback. The more complex the process, the more coordination between brain regions is required. This means that stone tools are direct traces of cognitive evolution. They reflect planning ability, internal action simulation, and most importantly, the capacity for iterative learning. From crude implements to refined tools came the accumulation of knowledge across generations, and stone, a durable material, preserved that memory intact. There were no written words, no recorded sounds, but each flake, its position, angle, and pattern, was the first sentence humans spoke to the world. I know how to do this, and I remember how it's done. Human memory didn't begin with language. It began with action, etched into the rock. And it is through stone that we trace the first clues of how our ancestors thought, learned, and began to become human. Part 2. The story of hands. The human hand is an extraordinary evolutionary tool. It not only made tools, it allowed humans to manipulate the physical world with ideas. About 2.5 million years ago, a group of hominins in East Africa evolved a hand structure that enabled precise grip, an opposable thumb, a long and flexible index finger, a grip strong enough to hold tight, yet delicate enough to control. This was Homo habilis, the handyman, the first human named for their dexterity. Unlike other primates who merely picked up stones, Homo habilis crafted them, actively altering materials to achieve specific purposes. This process wasn't automatic. It required organized behaviors, selecting the right kind of stone, typically basalt, quartzite, or chert, identifying the strike point, using the opposite hand to deliver force at the correct angle, to produce a sharp, stable cutting edge. The result wasn't a random flake, but was a design tool, with purpose, with foresight, and with repetition. Archaeologists call this the Olduvai technology, characterized by simple tools, flaked on one side, creating sharp edges for cutting meat, breaking bones, stripping plants. But beneath this simplicity lies a cognitive leap, from reaction to intention. This had long-term consequences. As hands began making tools, the brain evolved to coordinate more complex actions. The motor cortex expanded. Neural connections between movement, vision, memory centers grew stronger. Tool-making became brain training, both physical and mental. MRI studies show When modern humans learn to chip stone, language-related brain regions also activate. This suggests that the coordination of hand-eye thought may have laid the foundation for expression and abstract reasoning. Each stone tool is proof. Humans didn't just react to their environment, they began reshaping it. From raw stone to tool, from tool to improved hunting, from hunting to social transformation, a chain reaction sparked by the hand. More importantly, choices were no longer purely instinctive. A Homo habilis facing a rock did not act at random. They observed, judged, experimented, and refined. This is the behavior of learning and of transmitting knowledge through repeated observation across generations. There were no words, but actions were copied. No manuals, but skills were preserved in muscle memory. In evolutionary terms, this was a turning point, from passive tool use like primates to conscious tool mastery. From there, something unprecedented emerged. Humans began to see themselves as agents of change. The ability to shape matter led to a new awareness, creative sovereignty. This mindset, though primitive, formed the basis of all future technology. Whether stone axe or satellite, everything began with a gesture. Pick up inert material and decide to make something new. The hand did not merely make tools. The hand shaped human history. Part 3. Stone wasn't just for cutting. Prehistoric stone tools weren't always practical. Some artifacts were crafted with sophistication far beyond survival needs. They weren't optimal for cutting, breaking, or grinding. Yet they exhibited striking symmetry, balance, and refinement, sometimes to a surprising degree. This phenomenon is noted at several archaeological sites, notably Bos in China and Alorgesailie in Kenya. There, numerous hand axes have been found, shaped almost geometrically, with precisely flaked, balanced faces and sharp edges arranged in symmetrical layouts. The common trait: no signs of use. In other words, these tools might not have been made to work. They were made to be kept. This leads to a hypothesis. These tools may have been symbolic, valued not for physical function, but for cognitive, ritual, or social significance. Symmetry doesn't arise from utility. It appears when the maker can imagine a desired shape and acts deliberately to achieve it. This is a clear expression of abstract thought. In neurobiology, creating symmetry from asymmetrical raw materials requires activation of multiple brain regions, spatial vision, fine motor control, working memory. It is a complex behavior, not random. From a cognitive archaeology perspective, when a tool is designed beyond its function, it means the maker sees something in the material, something others may not. This is the birth of aesthetics. When humans look at stone and see beauty, shaping stone was no longer just use, it became creation. And with that came the ability to assign symbolic value. A polished stone might represent power, social role, or communal ritual. At some sites, tools that are excessively beautiful are found in special contexts: burials, non-domestic layers, or near traces of red pigments like hematite. This suggests ceremonial use. There is no written record, but the way our ancestors selected, polished, and preserved these stones shows a system of meaning, however early it was, had begun to emerge. When humans began assigning symbols to objects, cognition took a leap. Matter was no longer just matter. It became the residence of ideas. From tool to ritual, from form to symbol, from stone to the birth of symbolic language. This behavior was not personal, but likely communal. A hand axe was made not just to be admired by the maker, but to be seen and understood by others. This is the foundation of nonverbal communication, a critical stepping stone to language, art, and ceremony. Symbolic thinking didn't arise by chance. It developed layer by layer, through craftsmanship, imagination, and the need to share meaning within a group. And stone tools are the first physical evidence of that entire process. Part 4. A Dream in the Earth. Deliberate burial is one of the earliest signs that humans developed metaphysical thinking. At numerous archaeological sites dating back over 90,000 years, such as Kafse, Israel, Skul, Palestine, and Shunadar, Iraq, scientists have discovered ancient human remains intentionally placed in specific positions. These burials are accompanied by stone tools, bead necklaces, animal bones, and traces of red pigment, usually hematite or iron oxide. The use of red has no practical function. It likely held symbolic meaning, perhaps representing blood, life, or rebirth. This suggests the presence of a mental framework that goes beyond basic survival needs. In many cases, the bodies were curled into fetal positions, with heads oriented toward specific directions, often toward the rising sun. Some graves were outlined with special stones or carefully selected materials. These arrangements were intentional. This wasn't the disposal of biological waste. This was ritual. The key point: our ancestors had begun to think of death as a meaningful event. They no longer saw the end of life as absolute. They acted as if the dead still needed belongings, as if there was another journey ahead. Stone tools often accompanied the dead: knives, axes, flakes. These items no longer served any practical use once their owners had died. Their inclusion implies a belief that the dead continue on elsewhere, or that honoring them served a function within the community. Archaeologists refer to this as organized symbolic behavior, a cognitive capacity seen only in species with advanced awareness, such as Homo sapiens and some Neanderthal groups. From a cognitive evolutionary perspective, this is compelling evidence of a mind capable of simulating the metaphysical. That is, imagining what cannot be seen. It requires memory, abstraction, empathy, and belief. This way of thinking reshaped social life, the emergence of funerary rites, special roles for the deceased, and possibly even early social hierarchies based on burial location or the quantity of grave goods. The choice of stones, the crafting of tools, and their placement inside the grave were no longer random acts. They were the result of logical sequencing. If the dead persist, what might they need, and how do we give it? Thus, stone, once a survival tool, was transformed. It became a symbol, a medium between the visible world and the invisible one. When Homo sapiens began using stone to communicate with death, they also began to form ideas of the soul, of legacy, and of collective memory. Burial is a physical action, but its motivation lies in a mental architecture. And that's how we know humans didn't just live. They began to dream of what lies beyond life. Part 5. We, the dreamers born from stone. Tool-based thinking is the foundation of technological thought, and technological thought is the seed of all modern creativity. Every object humans create or use reflects a structured behavioral chain: observation, analysis, material processing, goal adaptation. This structure didn't originate in the digital era. It began in the Stone Age, when Homo habilis picked up a stone and chipped it into a blade. They weren't merely following instinct. They envisioned the outcome, experimented, failed, and refined. The ability to simulate action in the mind before execution is the root of all design, from a simple handsaw to an orbital satellite. The anatomy of the modern human hand hasn't changed much from that of our ancestors 2 million years ago. The prefrontal cortex, where we plan, assess risk, and manage emotion, relies on the same biological foundation. What's changed is how we use them, expanded by generations of cultural inheritance. The first stone tool was part of evolution, but it was also the beginning of a mindset. Humans don't just live in the world, they reshape it. That mindset, from shaping matter to abstract concepts, continues today. A kitchen knife, a sculpture, an algorithm, a skyscraper, all are born of the same cognitive process, reimagining the world from raw substance. In other words, modern creativity is not a rupture. It is a continuation, a seamless extension of the Paleolithic mind. Each time a modern human picks up an object and asks, "What can I make of this?" they echo the very same act that once helped their ancestors survive. The difference lies not in the nature of the act, but in its scale and complexity. If stone tools extended physical capabilities, digital tools expand cognitive reach. Yet both are expressions of the same mental architecture: modeling, mastery, and creation. The real question isn't how different are we from our ancestors? It's what legacy are we carrying forward and how far will we take it? Archaeological evidence tells us Homo sapiens, Homo erectus, Neanderthals all used tools, all contemplated death, all created symbols. Abstract thinking is not unique to the present. It has been here for hundreds of thousands of years, just without the words to express it. That's why studying stone tools is not merely archaeology. It is cognitive science. It's the story of how symbolic thought began and how humans transformed matter into meaning. When a prehistoric person struck stone, they weren't just making a tool. They were laying the intellectual foundation of humanity, the ability to imagine what does not yet exist and then make it real. From the hands of our ancestors to the modern keyboard runs an unbroken thread, and the dream of humanity has never ceased. From dreaming of tools to dreaming of memory, from dreaming of survival to dreaming of the sacred, from stone to data, from cave to cyberspace. We were not the first species to craft, but we were the first to dream through material. And in that sense, we are the dreamers, born from stone.